Hey, and welcome to the Weed Out, where we weed out the bullshit and talk about the nonsense in our backyard. I'm Spencer Fox Peterson, along with my co host as always.
Hi everyone, I'm Joanna May Booty.
Thanks for joining us again. Episode 41. We're coming up on 1 year of the Weed Out. We've had lots of guests on, we've had lots of great stories. Please go back into our back catalog where we talk with union organizers, other community organizers around bail reform or housing initiatives like Neighbor to Neighbor. We plan on checking back in over the next year with those folk to see where they're at in their journey, but also some new people coming in. And we had really great response to our records request episodes with Andrew and most recently Jeff Raymond of the Mass Transparency Projects. So we're probably end up referencing those episodes tangentially today. First and foremost, before we get too into it, remember to go to our website, www.theweedout.com. Go to our social media. We're on every platform, and now we're on YouTube. So all our stuff is on YouTube. If that's your preferred way to listen, we try to make it accessible. We have lots of great ideas coming down in the future, but for now, we're audio only, as it is time efficient for our editing, etc., and our skills. Remember, Joanna and I are not tech people; we are laborers and writers. So we are getting better at it. So thank you for sticking through. I'm sure you can tell a difference even in our pacing and in our editing from episode one. I go back and listen to episode one every now and then, and I'm like, oh God, oh God. But thank you everybody for sticking along with this journey. Look out for fun stuff coming in the future. Joanna, do you have any thoughts about the past or the future or both?
I just completely agree with you. I'm thankful that people stuck around because, there's a learning curve, and the listeners who do know me know that when I jump into something, like I'm gonna figure it out. So it might not be perfect, but Spence and I are trying, and we have some, awesome requests from listeners, even just like the YouTube thing. Like we tried to make it work for now. And so thanks for sticking around. And we hope that you just keep with us.
And this is just it's a good time to remind anybody, if you have any skills and you want to get on the abolition train, feel free to reach out to us. Maybe we can collaborate, maybe we can work together, maybe we can do a lot of things. It's not just us. We're no man is an island. We appreciate all the people that have come on, that we've highlighted their work, whether it's records requests or organizing for better housing, for better policies, for better work conditions. We want to highlight those stories because legacy media, or as Joseph Goebbels of Nazi Germany called mainstream media. So we don't call it mainstream media, just a reminder. We call it legacy media. We try not to invoke terms invented by Nazis, but believe it or not, a lot of stuff was invented by Nazis and or American fascists that predate the Nazis. And it's a really discouraging topic to talk about. So we really appreciate everybody sticking with us and finding the joy with us, whether it's at the Solidarity Economy Festival, talking about wins with unions. Shout out to the Barnes and Noble Hadley union organizers being the first corporate store to unionize, and others have followed. They're leading the path. So we like highlighting good stories. Even if you have a story you want us to get on, or you saw a piece and you want us to, in a different publication, you want us to highlight it or dig into it. We unofficially call ourselves ombudsmen, right, Joanna? Like we pay attention to Mass Live and WWLP and Boston Globe, New York Times. We pay attention to all these legacy media entities because there's truth to be seen, but the way they frame stuff tend to be for corporate interests, big money interests, powerful people, and powerful people include the chief of police in your town. They're powerful.
Very powerful. And they're usually paid a lot of money that comes from your tax dollars.
The systems that a lot of these people get a lot of money for aren't beneficial to the working person, the working class, the marginalized, the poor, the destitute. We're just numbers in a line for them. So it's important to highlight workers, highlight organizers. That's why we do that here. So thank you again for sticking it out with us. We've made a lot of friends along the way. we knew a lot of socialist activists, communists, anything. We knew a lot before, but we know a lot more now because of the weed out. And we hope that we can be a bridge between these different groups, and also just to like give people a different option. So that's what we're doing here. And full transparency, this is what Joanna and I do outside of our full-time work. We work elsewhere for other people, and we just see this as our duty as citizens in a community, fellow neighbors,
Absolutely.
and try to read between the lines. I have a little media literacy. I went to school for communications. I know I have an eye for that stuff. Joanna has an eye for research. I don't have an eye for research. I mean, I get it. I can read stuff. I can fact check. I can look stuff up, but that's just not my language. The dry academic stuff isn't really for me, but I do find it really important, and I'm not an anti-intellectualist. So I like to work with people that I feel like don't have that I don't have those strengths. So, obligatory, Joanna, thank you very much for making me a better student.
Uh,
Whether you
I don't realize it. And I just have to say, to you and anyone listening, research doesn't have to be dry and academic either. And I don't mean that like the people who are like, QAnon saying they're doing research with memes are doing research either. But when you think of like your self-reflection or the way you as a person may like be interested in learning or growing, and that may be a reason why you listen to our podcast, because those are values that Spencer and I both hold really closely. I don't mean to speak for you, Spencer, but I think
no,
I can hear.
it's a lot offline. So
Yeah. So I think if that's like the type of person you are, I think even though, thank you for the accolades, I think it is my pleasure to sometimes break down different pieces of information that might seem dry or academic. But I think a lot of us engage in small forms of research. So when we look at it and then in a non like scary way, I guess, because academic stuff can be like that for people and even me, especially me, I would say sometimes. I just think it's a pleasure to be talking about these things and sharing them with you. So thank you. I don't mean to be in a teaching role in this position, because it really feels most of the time, because we are usually having on guests, that I'm really, like you said, learning so much from people in the community. So it's like a little research project, kind of. That's what it feels like.
also, I'd like to think that the weed out, our mission is it doesn't have to be, you can still talk like a normal person. Fuck, you can still talk like
Oh, hell yeah.
a longshoreman and still have facts, reality, being able to break down the propaganda you're being fed. It's not a failing if you fall for propaganda, but it is your responsibility to get understand who's telling you a message and why.
I agree with you, Spencer. I just want the audience to know that, like, I myself have fallen for like things in the past where like you just get really confused. Like, so when the vaccine stuff came out a long time ago, like, oh, it was probably like 2000, mid 2000 era, where they were like trying to scare people with autism and vaccines.
Know when this happened? It was 2008.
I thought it was actually, I couldn't remember. Thank you.
RFK Jr.'s was up on Capitol Hill testifying and
Oh my God.
spewing misinformation. They were quoting him back to 2008.
Wow. So it really did like impact you though, because at the time I was working with children with ASD, and I was like, okay, well, I didn't immediately say like, okay, vaccines are terrible. But for a moment, until like you said, I had to really check myself, because at first I was like, oh God, like, what is this? And until I could look and figure out like from actual scientists what was going on, the tactics that are used and that are now used by like just police, or police officers with the organ within the organizations, were used back then to kind of, I don't know, create fear and chaos around something that does not need to be explained to us in that way. And I think I was embarrassed afterwards thinking about it.
what you're referencing to is cops telling about airborne contact with things like fentanyl,
Yeah.
amphetamine, which that's not how your body absorbs it.
Yeah.
It could be something else, like, yeah, sure, anthrax, I guess, but like there's a lot of lies, and there's a lot of unintentional lies. There's a lot of, it doesn't really matter. That's the thing we get to. Like, people think we're like QAnon, where it's like, I don't really give a fuck who's doing it, and I don't really care. I just want to teach. I want to shake my fellow comrades, my coworkers, my community members, people listening to this show, be like, it's on us to shake this shit out, to weed it out, so to speak. It's on us. So like,
Yes. We have to ask questions. We have to question things.
that doesn't, so when you're at a dinner party and somebody brings up a cop fainting from fentanyl, be like, no, that's a panic attack. That's not how fuck.
Right. That's not how it works.
And there's a wonderful doctor on Twitter. This is getting on a tangent, but Ryan Marino, something like that.
We can share it too.
Yeah, this doctor has been really on the forefront of pushing back. He's a lot like Alec, quality Alec, the propaganda expert.
But I love his stuff. He is such a good scholar in stuff in a field that is what Alec K. Yeah.
K, and his handle is Equality Alec on Twitter, and I believe on other platforms, and definitely has a Substack. Search that person out. They talk about propaganda in a way that is academic, thought out, while appropriately aggressive. And what I'm trying to tie this all into is, with the experience of the weed out, before we get into the meat of the episode, I just want to let everybody know, like, we've met a lot of great people. We've also met a lot of people that try to take your time, take your peace, and are bitter people. And that's fine. They can be bitter. I feel bad for you, but I'm also not going to take your shit. So my thing is, I think it's too, and I could be wrong. So like, anybody listening, I am very fallible. But like, these people only understand, these people with the cop mentality, with the mentality of prohibiting and forcefully stopping people from doing anything, whatever it is, dressing like a woman, changing your gender, changing your fucking preferred pronouns. Whenever they try to stop you by force or by shame from just expressing who you are, those motherfuckers only understand one thing. That's fucking violence. Now, that doesn't mean you go up and pop them in the face. I mean, maybe, I don't know. I'm not a lawyer. I wouldn't recommend popping somebody in the face. The criminal justice system is not very kind to working class people. So I advise not punching somebody in the face. But that doesn't mean you can't stand your ground, even on a digital space. And if that means blocking somebody, great. That's a good thing to do. Fine. Me personally, and Joanna, we go right back at them. So
I don't like bullies. I never have.
When they
No. I don't think we're bullies. That the only people that I will like come back at in a way that isn't my kind self that everyone gets to hear here is if they start, if you throw the first punch, like, I'm sorry, I'll defend myself.
Yeah, my line,
it's not my first rodeo.
For example, anybody listening, my line in the sand is when I post something, somebody comes in our space and has something to say. And if they invoke a racist trope dog whistle or a classist dog whistle, I'll actually quote tweet them and put them on the timeline. I don't give a fuck. But there's other people who just disagree, and we can have there's plenty.
Oh yeah, that's fun. Those conversations, and
that's not who we're talking about. We're coming to people that say like, that say the really overt shit, like, you don't want to be here late at night. It gets darker earlier, if you know what I mean. And you're like, first of all, like, caging people has never solved crime. It's a poverty issue at the end of the day. Like, when you grow up in a stress-filled poverty life, you're gonna make bad fucking decisions, and you're gonna learn that you have to take what you can. I mean, the rich people take what they can. What's the fucking difference? It's just when the rich people do that and exploit their workers and exploit the land and exploit peoples and countries, they're doing the same thing a poor person's doing it. They're just doing it through legal means. Our cops don't spend any money going after wage theft. You have to sue. That's the only way it's enforced. You have to fucking sue.
Which costs you money unless you win.
And I'm going to tangent right in here because here we go. Why we're here at the weedout today, we're going to highlight an article with from the shoestring that was posted today with our comrade Shelby Lee out of Easthampton. Wonderful writer, wonderful investigative person, public records hound. They're great.
My family.
Oh, and Joanna has a familial tie. We won't get into that. It's not why we're here. But shout out to friends and fam,
Heck yeah.
the deal. So
Their
apparently
family.
speeding and driving recklessly are a problem in this country, right?
I mean,
everybody in their own car, odds of people doing fucked up shit in cars go up, right? It's just a lot of people on the road. We've all done traffic infractions. It's not a moral thing. Yes, there's some things that are egregious and are moral because it's dangerous to you and others. Sure, drinking and driving, that's a moral problem. But it's not something that gets solved with after the fact. We have to come up with solutions. We have to have public transportation. We have to educate people on how bad alcohol is for us. And you have to let people come to those conclusions on their own. Give them other options. Right now, all we have is cars. I mean, that's just the reality. And everything is spread out, especially when you live in Western Mass. But what does the government want to do? They want to track who's going across city lines with computers and cameras, but they can't do that with business records and wages.
Well, they're gathering license plate numbers, just to be specific for the audience.
They can't do spot inspections of businesses. You guys get where I'm going at? Cops don't go into businesses and be like, I want to see, we need to see everybody's working papers, making sure that you're doing everything right. I'm not saying that's a world I want to live in either. I don't want cops. But like, just look at the priority here. Trying to stop people, trying to track people. So we'll get into the story. But basically what I'm saying is budgets and policies are fucking choices. They're choices, and they show you where your priorities are at. And our priorities is to go after the individual and not solve the systemic root of any problem, whether it's driving problems, whether it's drug problems, or, police malfeasance. None of this is solved with keeping the most people safe at once. It's about getting blood and making an example of somebody and dragging their name through the court system. And you'll notice with somebody like Donald Trump, who is currently probably going to get indicted again, he's running for fucking president, walking free. Dude stole fucking military documents. Like, what are we talking about? That kid Jack Teixeira out of South Dighton, Massachusetts, or just Dighton, Massachusetts. I don't know if he's from South. I think that's where he's from. He's currently being held pre-trial detention indefinitely because he stole documents and disseminated them. Like, listen, they pick and choose what they want to do, and that's really just all I'm getting at. And Joanna, so I could keep rambling. Thank you everybody for listening to my ramble. That's Real Talk with Spencer Fox. And we're gonna get to the meat of the episode. It's gonna be a shorter episode, no interview this week, but we had to talk about this story written by Shelby Lee of the Shoestring regarding police Pigtech, as one of our favorite Twitter accounts calls it, #Pigtech. Look it up. It includes ShotSpotter, which Joanne and I have spent extensive time talking about, and many other things. So fuck Pigtech, and I hate it. Makes me sad that pigs get a bad name.
Yeah, me too. Bacon is so good.
Yeah, and just in general,
and pigs are smart.
They're like, if you pasture pigs correctly, you can maintain a farm really well. You can have a nice little if you use them properly and respect them, there is a role for them on the farm. And as a former butcher, I never worked on farms, but I worked, I bought stuff from farmers and learned secondhand through them, and just understanding how to care for the land, and if you just keep pigs in one spot and don't rotate them and have too many and don't necessarily have the right land for it. I mean, pigs are pretty versatile. They're tough little guys, but yeah, I mean, they need shit to like dig up, so rocky land isn't really great for them. Anyways, the point is, you gotta look at it holistically and from a big picture, and that's just what we're trying to get at. So please, Joanna, get us into the story. Shelby Lee, the Shoestring, shout out. We will tag y'all in the notes.
Yeah, so the article is called Records. Easthampton Police Install Automatic License Plate Reader on Route 141. And that's a route that connects Easthampton to Holyoke. What mountain range is that? Mount
That,
Holyoke?
that's Mount Tom.
Oh, Mount Tam, that's right. So basically, Easthampton Police Department, the shoestring found out after doing some public records requests that the Easthampton Police Department have purchased 2 automatic license plate readers from a company that the ACLU has described as building a form of mass surveillance unlike any seen before in American life. And so again, one has been installed on 141. The city purchased this device without really having to like involve anyone outside of like City Hall. According to an invoice that was obtained, they purchased these 2 flock safety devices in April. They're referred to as Falcon Flex, and that was revealed in an email between the Easthampton Police Chief Robert Alberti and the flock safety territory manager Craig Lynch. And they picked this location just, according to the website, the devices are location flexible and allow for temporary installation virtually anywhere. So maybe they'll move it, maybe they won't. I didn't see, I don't know if you did, Spencer, if in the article it says, I don't know if they've installed the second one yet.
I read it as they hadn't installed it yet.
That's what I'm seeing too. So I'm not seeing that yet. So we'll have to keep an eye out. But basically they only had to go through like the city procurement officer, and there was like a clause in the state chapter laws that allowed for like less than a $10,000 purchase to kind of go without having to go before the city councilors or a town meeting or anything like that. So the combined cost annually will be $5,000 after the $10,000 purchase, but it does say that they could increase it at any time within 60 days prior notice. So it can go up. It still is a cost to your community. And really what they're doing is giving free access to private cameras to take pictures of your license plate number. And I just feel personally, I mean, if the ACLU has raised repeated concerns over the company's practices and future goals, I just don't know why, like, I do know, but I asked to the towns, to the towns that in this area that think they're so progressive. I don't know. We shouldn't have laws, I guess, that allow people, especially the police, to be buying anything without our scrutiny if this is what they're putting into place. Shelby's article goes on to have, I would urge everyone to read it. There are people saying from other places in Portsmouth, Rhode Island in July of 2022, the town council of Portsmouth, Rhode Island, the ACLU highlighted potential First Amendment and privacy infringement, an alleged lack of transparency, and the absence of meaningful legal safeguards to hold flock safety and municipal law enforcement departments accountable with the data. The town council unanimously rejected the use of the flock safety system. So the point I'm making when I talk about how the Easthampton group could just overlook doing that is like the council didn't get to do anything. The police department and whoever got to decide. I just want to take a moment to remind everyone that in every town, like the police chief has a boss, and that's the mayor and the city council usually combined. And I just think please become involved in some degree and understanding what's happening in your town. I know you might not be able to stop it, but hopefully people in Easthampton can meet. I mean, if we keep reading the article, it does go on. Shelby shares a good amount of information about how, Easthampton is not the first in Massachusetts to use the flock safety surveillance system. So I think that's interesting because personally, I had never heard about this. I don't know about you, Spence, but I had never heard about flock safety.
I have in my travels. Again, shout out to at OLAASM. Don't know how they pronounce it. It's this propaganda cataloger. He does a propaganda digest once a day. His name's Craig, but I don't. They're a mystery person on the internet, and they're wonderful. Shout out to them. But all this stuff is through public records requests. So this is the work that Andrew Quamir and Jeff Raymond are doing, and Shelby Lee has been consistently doing this for as long as I've known them. Um, Definitely has the most in-depth stuff for the shoestring that covers police. They do other it's very they're less myopic than the weed out. We focus on mostly police because I don't know. I feel like I'm really worried about the boot, and I don't like the boot. I grew up in an authoritarian household. I went to a Catholic school. I can only imagine if guns were fucking at play. And so I don't really like authoritarians, especially when they have guns and tech like this. You're supposed to have right to free passage in this country, right to travel unencumbered, unhindered. You're presumed innocent until proven guilty. We have a lot of things that are really being ignored by color of law. Not it may be legal, and they may find legal ways to make, but the color of what the Constitution. Ugh, sidebar. Bleh, to the Constitution, like what a fucking heap of garbage. Because the fact that we without any say, the police can set up these cameras connected to computer databases. Northampton has a contract with Motorola Solutions, which was deemed stuff used in apartheid states like Palestine. This is the same stuff as Flock Technology. So to answer your question, Joanna, I know it's a big problem in Ohio. Ohio's like where all this shit starts. Ohio's like the hotbed for like that, and like, Houston and New York City. But like I'm talking like small town shit, not big cities that have convention arenas, where places where rich people go. Yeah, like your mid-sized cities like Worcester. That all these things are tested out basically, and the companies seem to come from Ohio. So abolish Ohio, I guess.
They suck. They suck during election
The
cycles
state, not the
usually too.
people. I've met.
Or is that like Iowa? I don't know. I can't. I'm not. I don't know.
Ohio's big in the general elections.
Yeah, it's always like a big like swing
Now
state. It's so weird.
the primary is, but well, it's because they're super gerrymandered, so it's like a super majority Republican, but they are like purple. I don't. It doesn't matter. Fuck blue team, red team. Most of the people in Ohio, just like most people in the country, are politically disengaged or fed some misinformation. Most people's values, we find, are generally do no harm. Like that, I used to be very cynical and nihilistic as a younger person. And I've come around that no, most people do not want to do harm.
Yeah, we are safe.
People that do harm on the small scale, whether they're robbing you to like, for your $5 that you have in your pocket to go buy something that they need, drugs or otherwise. And I say need because they need it.
And also, like, who is getting robbed right now? I ask you, our audience. Like, when's the last time you got robbed? I know, but I ask our audience. I ask them, like, when's the last time you got robbed?
What are the circumstances that led to somebody to assault somebody like that? And yeah, it's dire. It's dire. Just you put yourself in their shoes, and it's like, okay, this makes sense. So how do we solve that problem? But yeah, the problem definitely isn't with cameras that are tied to computer databases that probably have algorithms and they can triangulate where you are. There's other things called stingrays, which are fake cell phone towers that police put up, and your phone thinks it's a cell phone tower, so it sends all your metadata wherever. Again, Joanna and I are not technical, so forgive us. But big picture, like they can triangulate where you are. So if you're at home, they can prove your home. because if your phone's on, they can also prove that you carry your phone pretty much everywhere with you because they can get your phone records. You know, it's like it's bad. It's not good. So when I see people like January 6th rioters, that's how they get taken down. I don't know. It feels, yeah, they did something fucked up, but you know, I don't know. I just feel it. We all have a tracking device on us, and if you're really worried about that, I mean, you should be worried about these police license plate readers in the hands of these fucking slack-jawed yokels that are cops that have a lot of fucking power, and they're petty. They're simple men mostly. I mean, was it Boston Police last week just announced like their goal is by 2030 to have 30% of their force be female? And that's a fucking win. No, this is a patriarchally, I'm sorry. And the type of women, Joanna, maybe you can speak on this, but like the type of women are misogynist. So like you can be a woman and misogynist. You can.
It's also like, even if you say you're not like aware that you're holding some of those values, right? I mean, with the way we're raised, unless you're working daily, and even then, we all have like been impacted by this horrible programming to the point where, even say that you're like someone who's really working on all of those things and you do want to help someone and you get into the system of policing, you're just like used as a token or a tool or a prop for like propaganda to normalize a terrible system at best. And at worst, like you try to do something right and you're harmed and probably losing your job. So yeah, I don't know how this would help in any way. Because most of the women will be just like the men who go into policing. Um, and 40% of those men are alleged and used, or isn't it typically they're actually 40% are have domestic violence crimes against their families? So I mean, that's the type of people that want to be police officers.
Yeah, it's really unfortunate, and we're giving them very powerful tools. And you know, this is a Joe Biden on fucking down, every single one of them. Like they're using ARPA funds, you know, American Rescue Plan funds that are meant for COVID, like they did in Holyoke. They're and what they used funds for in Northampton to upgrade stuff behind closed doors. This is a disgusting pattern to spend this money on policing. And that's just, I mean, Joanna and I fancy ourselves somewhat ombudsman, and that's our take on this. And the framing in the media is disgusting. That's why you feel like we're the crazy ones, because media is just, you know, the legacy media is has tied interests. They want to keep the working class poor. It's good for them. It's good business. And then just it's easy to keep people scared of these phantom once in a fucking blue moon carjackings or whatever. All this shit, you know. I'm really sorry if I'm rambling, everybody, but it's tiresome. And Joanna and I just want a better place. I mean, I keep speaking for you, Joanna. I'm sorry.
It's okay. I do want a better place. I mean, I don't want to have, I already understand the surveillance that like with having a phone, that like it's hard for me to like nitpick what surveillance I'd like or not like. I just don't think more is better, if that makes sense. And like, I guess to know that this already exists in like 150 locations throughout our state. And there's like a report in this article too that says like the Globe in 2020 said that like the state officials for public safety turned down this system because there was like widespread inaccuracies in the databases. So I just feel like that's a huge problem that people may not fully grasp. Like it sounds like a good idea to some people, like this will keep us safe. It will be monitoring if like, you know, say a serial killer or someone who had like kidnaps your child. We can track them with this device, potentially might be one of the things they say, or any criminals, which we all know how we feel about crime. I just think it's actually going to be used against people who are like maybe coming to our state to get like, you know, gender affirming care or abortions or just things, not even that abortion pills, because in some states you can't even just get regular like gender affirming care. um it could be used to then prosecute you in your own state. I feel like that's what will happen. And again, if there's large inaccuracies in the data sets already, I'm thankful that at the state level, they are like, oh, we don't want to waste money. We don't want to, like throw money away on something where the data is actually not even going to be worth using. But some states don't care. And this could be, and the article goes on to say, like, this could track attendance at political events, places of worship. Think about it, track immigrants moving across the country.
Thank you for bringing up immigrants. I was going to say immigrants and legal or not. I hate that fucking term. I never use it. They're immigrants, but they're people first. And
Right.
regardless of their status with this imaginary made up fucking system that's literally made up by people, it's arbitrary. They're a person here. They don't if they're traveling on the roads, they're buying gas, they're buying food, like they're paying fucking taxes. And I hate that too, because everybody's paying fucking taxes. And it's proven that even people that are working here without papers likely pay more taxes than we do. And there's other, quote unquote hidden taxes because they have to go to check cashing places or whatever. Like, any of that type of stuff, they lose money just trying to get their money. Having worked with a lot of folk in the service industry that's not been from here, it's not cheap. And I don't know. They're participating in our society. They're making the fucking cogs go. They're not here on a free ride. None of these folk. So it's horseshit, and it makes me angry that we're gonna track them like they're less than a whole person, and
Well,
they're
they're
not.
tracking all of us in this case
They
too.
are,
Literally.
sure, yeah, but like it
Yeah.
bothers me. Like this person literally has no protections. They're the most vulnerable amongst us.
No, I completely agree. They're just the way that they're looking to break down the data on they're tracking, let's say, like, just for the audience sake, like they're tracking all of us, but once they find out who your license plate number is, then they're gonna do these subset trackers on, yes, like you're saying, like people who are in the category of immigrant, or people who may be worshiping in a certain type of religion that is not considered, and that's not, I don't know, I'm sure our audience is the type of audience that would agree with us. But I would hope like anyone in any country would not want this to be a normal practice used by the police or the state.
Or anybody. Nobody should have that
It
power.
shouldn't be happening. Like, especially if you're finding out that the data is not even accurate most of the time. You're paying, it's once again a shot spotter type scenario where you're paying this fucking company money with your hard earned, like working class tax dollar money. The people in charge are deciding, oh, we need to keep you safe. I don't know from what. They're going to do that by putting money, they're telling me, into a technology that is not effective. And I just beg people to like really think about how, I don't know, like that $10,000 could have been used to get the Easthampton community pool up and running sooner than this recent season. Just that alone is better for the community. Um, so I just urge people, like I always do, to think about those things. And I just want to, we can keep talking about it, but I just want to plug thank you, Shelby Lee. And just give them, this is their wonderful story. Please go read it at theshoestring.org. Shelby is a short story writer and investigative reporter. And they can be reached at shelbylee12321@gmail.com. So please, if you have any questions or you have a records request you think that they should investigate, please reach out in the East Hampton area.
Thank you so much, Joanna, for walking us through that article. Appreciate it. It's really important that we highlight this kind of stuff. This was just dropped this week of July 24th. This stuff keeps happening. ShotSpotter, whether it's the cloud service dash cams they use in apartheid Palestine in Northampton, these people, and on top of it, let's make this real for our listeners and for anybody your listeners maybe argue with. Think of your average cop that who are they?
For me, like there's this group of brothers back home that I grew up with. They were my dad's best friend's sons, and one of them unfriended me when I became an abolitionist because he is a police officer. But all three of those men were good boys and good men that I knew growing up. So they're the type of people that make me realize like there are good people who want to become cops. That being said, I don't know, once I don't associate with them now. Like as adults, we like live different lives, and they still typically are religious and stuff. I do talk to their sister who, and like I said, they're all wonderful people. So it's again anecdotal, but I don't believe the system allows them to be the good people that they may be because of what it is. I mean, I'm not going to share personal anecdotal things, but I know that the system creates the power, the belief in absolute power, which I think as a cop you must have eventually when you have carry a gun. I just don't think it can keep the best of intentioned person in best intentioned for long.
And when you grew up with propaganda yourself,
Well, right.
believe it. And then also it lessens consequences because you see Derek Chauvin, even though he got thrown in jail, he was made an example of, right? But like he's going to be out of jail in like 4 years. Like,
Yeah,
I
that's what I
mean,
mean.
you're prisons because it's deplorable how we treat these people in prison.
But it's an example of how the system is supposed to be justice, and then this man was like a legitimate murderous, like he should be held to a higher standard based on his status in society.
Right.
Using the same system he would use to potentially put someone on death row if he could do it, because you know he would in certain states if he murdered someone. He would get the least of charges possible because our system is broken. Even if you wanted to be a good judge, like they'll find the judge that isn't you to move Derek Chauvin through the system. It's just the system is just made for white supremacy culture to thrive in.
It's not about skin culture, it's white supremacy.
Yeah, well, look at Claire Thomas.
Yeah, he's a bigger white supremacist than I've ever been. And, you know, I've said in the past, there are people I've grown up with, and looking back on it, I would actually describe them as white supremacists because they espouse things like replacement theory. And that's like a big, big, big tenet. If you can fucking believe that, or you can believe that any actions as that as a motivation is justified, that's wild shit. Because that means you don't believe in love, that people can just love each other, and that people have to, or even taking the fact like, well, why so many people don't mix. It's like, well, when you segregate folk, they don't get to fucking meet. So if kids never meet kids that don't look like them and then become young adults into teenage years during the development, and get to know these people as people, yeah, of course they're never gonna as adults mingle in those with those people. You know, it's like, this is, yes, so what you're saying is segregation worked.
Both multiracial, all kinds of relationships out there, like despite all of this programming too. So it goes to show you that fuck the programming, fuck what they tell you to be. I mean, these laws and social constructs are harmful to all of us. They're completely harmful to all of us.
And like as a kid, I will say, I said white supremacy doesn't require white skin, but it is a big factor. I mean, having white,
It's a very big factor.
whiter the skin, the longer you're going to stick around before they other you.
Yes, it's about othering.
Yeah, it's about othering. That's why women are never going to be safe, no matter what they look like or are. Because ultimately men will choose men over women, and that's the weird irony. And that's a little dirty little secret about masculinity. Men love other men, and they see women as,
Well, and at this point, it's depressing as a woman to have to explain to men at all, like at this point, why we would feel like personally, the only time I would feel unsafe is with men potentially, and especially cops who are men. An armed man is more scary than a not armed man.
and I want to also bring up that one of the reason I say that about men being in love with men, and being able to show like, and hating women part, the most common thing I run to in a male dominated industry, in my day job, I'm around all dudes. It's all men all the time. And the most common conversation you have, and this is and this is from some of the nicest, like some of the most dudes that give me the ick, right? One of the nicest dudes, his go-to like buddy move with me is to talk about how much he like can't wait for his wife to go away with her friends next weekend. Like, what?
Yeah, it's so mean. That's what they like to do though.
Asking me like, oh, how's married life? Because a lot of these dudes met me when I was, pre-married, but like got married since then. All the older dudes, and like, are you sick of it yet? No, man, I chose to be with this person.
That's a normal dude talking point.
And it's like, yeah, and they all like in a weird way, they still love their like. I'm talking about even the nicest of guys, but they think that's like
Yeah.
I think that's like what would be like, hey, other guys are like this, so you must be like this, right? And you're like, y'all don't even like women, man. What the fuck?
I have said it to groups of men. I've been in a lot of industries where it's me and a lot of guys, and it goes to that topic, like, oh, I can't because of my fucking wife. And I'm just like, why are you with someone if that's how you would talk about them behind their back to like a group of people too? It's just so shitty. I just want to say though, like, there's also not like a gender binary is ridiculous.
I don't care. Like, I could not care less about like what somebody does. Like, I got enough fucking. I don't understand these people that can't help but focus on other people. I'm just like, I can't even handle my own fucking life.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not worried about what you're doing. Are you gonna hurt me? No? Cool. We good. Anyways, men are not all right. The straights aren't okay.
They're not.
Also, dude, the monogamists are not okay. Y'all strict are nuts. uh, y'all
Like
think
I mean, as yeah, like the hierarchy stuff. As a non-married person, I totally get why I would marry my partner too. Same reasons as Spence. I love him and I would let him decide things. We haven't had to make that happen yet, thankfully, despite other issues. Um, but yeah, I mean, there's like the non like anyone who is pushing things that are like, the traditional things. I've never really got I really as a woman, it's honestly offensive that like the things that are most celebrated for us are like getting married, having a child. Um, your identity is kind of like rooted in that in some of the traditional programming sort of ways. And that just doesn't jive for me. So I'm a weirdo and I don't give a fuck at all.
yeah, whatever. It literally doesn't matter. Again, like
It's my choices. I'm happy. Please, no one worry about me. Like I don't worry about you.
about like this is all shit like humans just made up. It's made up.
That's
It's
what I'm
not
saying. Like you don't have to do what they tell you. You don't have to do it.
it's not real. It's so like maybe I've taken too many mushrooms in my day. It's been a long time, but I don't know if that's the revelation I had on drugs or if that was a revelation I had after like realizing working 80 hours a week for no gain other than clout at best, which is not clout, but at best it's like I can work 80 hours a week. Cool. It's all made up.
Well, yeah, and then when you find out like money isn't backed by gold, and I keep using that example lately, even off this recording because it's so interesting to tell like a lot of older Gen Xers and boomers recently. Like I'll just bring it up when we're chatting and they won't know that that's the case. And I'm just like mind blowing people left and right lately. So I'm enjoying that because like if our money's not backed by gold, like what are we fucking dealing monopoly money out here?
Yes.
I feel like we should all know that. Like I'm surprised at how many people I meet. And I'm not shaming anyone. It's just actually shocking that boomers who have like the most wealth in this country and like I have no idea that their money is not backed by anything. It's crazy wild to me.
Just to be clear, we love boomers.
No,
Boomers,
no, no. I'm just thinking it's crazy wild.
we have rad ass boomers in our lives. So shout out to all those folk. Like,
Yes, and some of them have been shocked by me lately, like when I asked this even. So I'm not shaming them at all. It's just like when we share these things that we share, all this information, it's like even I didn't know that until I knew it. And the things that are happening in our world, like they're not conspiracy theories. Like it actually like fucks us financially, and it's why we're here economically. And that's why it brings it back to this article. Like the police are just upholding like things for the wealthy, and that's why Shelby and investigative reporters are so important, because they're going to just continue taxing us even though money is fake, and then using that money to then, I mean, use it against us, and there's nothing we can even really do.
Then to say, oh well, we spent all that money, so yeah,
We
if
have no more.
the
And
bridge fails, because of a major flood, they won't have money on hand to get it going, to get it fixed. They'll have to wait till grants come in and all that bullshit, or get loans, or whatever fucking towns have to
well,
do.
whatever story they tell you, unless it's to like scan your license plate, it is what it is.
It's all made up. We can make up new shit, people. It's
Yeah.
all made up. Anyway,
It's fine. Like, I guess it's fine to realize that though, and just like decide, like, okay, we can make new stuff up, and I'm not in like a, okay, let's make up crazy things sort of way. Like, we can include all of the community in ways, and like in ways that in the past they couldn't have either. Like, I know in the past I've said in other episodes, like, like things about the founding fathers and stuff. I stand by those. Like the Constitution and everything in it should be edited. Like we have, as I think we have a duty as a people who hope to learn and grow and make a better society to like fix things, and like at least try to fix things to a certain extent. And I know I won't see that fully in my lifetime, but I'm committed to imagining a world that's better for everyone.
and for all those that need a cocktail party fact to shut up some fucking douchebag that's going on about the founding fathers and how sacred this document is, remind them Thomas Jefferson, king fucking douchebag, one of the worst motherfuckers, big part of writing that Constitution. Even he said they should rewrite this every generation.
Thank you, please.
Has to be not just add on, rewrite. I'm not saying he said add on amendments, rewrite, because he understood shit was change. He didn't know we were going to have computers in our pocket in 150 years, 200 years. He didn't know that, but he knew shit was different from 1700. Like, he wasn't stupid. He was a douchebag. He was a bad man. He killed a lot of people, a lot of Native Americans, a lot of his enslaved. He raped and killed them. He was a bad fucking person. But even he said that shit needs to be changed, because he knew enslaving people wasn't gonna last. People were gonna catch wise, because they knew it was bad.
Right. And I understand precedent, and that sometimes that's important, but not if it's monstrous. And I'm sorry, but all the good precedent that was set during the civil rights movement has recently been overturned by this kangaroo Supreme Court. And I just I feel that the system's in place, and it's not a feeling. The system's in place. Anyone who has been, organizing or is active or is political or is anything, they're not working. The only things that are working are organizers on the ground creating their own new ways of helping people. And it's oftentimes band-aids, because so much money is still going towards violent systems that really just oppress even the organizing that's going on the ground. And I don't know what to do about that. I'm personally excited about the election season coming up. I think 2024 will be crazy, and it will be fun to cover with our listeners. It will be horrible too and stressful. But again, like we talked about, as we come up on a 1-year anniversary, I'm just really thankful for the listeners that we have and the people that have come on, because we just keep learning and growing, and that's really exciting.
It is. So, as always, housekeeping, www.theweedout.com. We cover all sorts of stuff in the Connecticut River Valley to the Berkshires and all over Massachusetts, really. And we'd like to just talk about the things that are affecting the working class and the people that need the most needy in our population. I'm a recovering Catholic. I am not a fucking religious person, but one thing that always stuck with me, and one of the reasons I left places like the Catholic Church and institutions that claim to be men for others, etc., whatever bullshit they say, you got to take care of your least. And that includes the quote unquote illegal folk. That includes the people going through gender dysmorphia. That like you don't have that problem. So you have to give extra care to those people. It's not a burden. It's a duty as a good human being. So like that's just like my finger wagging for the day. It's our duty. Like deadly serious about that. If you care about human life, if you care about the planet, if you care about systems that keep us alive, life systems, whether it's the, you know, your friends and family, your community, the rivers, the fucking grass, everything, like you have to treat it with respect and care. So without the work of people like Shelby Lee looking and digging through the paperwork and getting the information, we wouldn't know about this. And they can cry poor and then find the money for this. Okay. And when a bridge fucking goes out because of floods, which we've been having, and farms are losing all their crops, like Mountain View Farm in Easthampton just lost all their crops and possibly their farm from these rainstorms, right? And like you're telling me you can't, a vital member of your community, like you went and spent money on a fucking license plate tracker, you can't build up infrastructure so this shit doesn't happen.
And that only costs $10,000 though. That's their argument probably. Like it's only 10,000.
Have a fucking rainy day fund when climate change is changing shit. And this is the thing. The climate change is, I'm going to transition into Ghoulery and tomfoolery because we're going to do lightning round because we're getting late. But the transition here is with climate change, which we're seeing here in our backyard, right? In Western Mass, the patterns are fucking wild. And
the weather is so different now than when I was a child. It's so scary.
Antarctica's temperatures are at places they didn't project happening for another 10 to 15 years. This is bad. It's fucking bad. And we're seeing roads get wiped out like it's nothing, infrastructure, all this stuff, because we don't think long term. And what's going to happen is as places get destabilized, people have to find new places to live, migrate. They have to migrate. So we're going to have more migration over these imaginary lines on a map, right? And that's going to cause a lot of pain and violence because people are going to do really fucked up shit. This jingoistic patriarch national shit. We're like really in a bad spot for this if climate change is going to happen. We're having an influx of immigrants. So the reason this is tied into Ghoulery and tomfoolery this week on Ghoulery and tomfoolery, Mass Live is reporting that Mayor Joshua Garcia says Holyoke is prepared for migrant influx, but state must up its game. And then the quote tweet, so like I don't know what you call that, like, you know, the tweet, they posted it and the headline didn't match the tweet. The headline says Garcia noted Holyoke's compassion for people, pledging to balance the needs of migrants with the city's own well-being. So they said the quiet part out in the tweet. The article itself is pretty middle of the road, and that's exactly the problem. That's exactly the fucking problem with this Mayor Garcia, my mayor, and with this article not pushing him, this journalist, these questions, the framing, and then on the Twitter, a right-wing neo-Nazi site now, they put these baiting fucking headlines in the tweet that's on the headline of the main feed on their website. So they're baiting fucking reactionaries, right-wing reactionaries on Twitter, because that's a hotbed for that now, or X, whatever the fuck we're calling it. And this is why it's Ghoulery and tomfoolery. It's fuckery. And then you go read this article, and for Josh Garcia to talk up both sides of his mouth here, be like, but we have to, balance our needs. What the fuck does that mean? You're saying word salad. You're not actually drawing what you mean by that. And this newspaper doesn't push back at all. In fact, they kind of write it in a glowing way. Like, he's going to stick up for you people inside the city, you taxpayers. And it's like, we get grants for that shit. That's not coming out of our city budget. Am I wrong, Joanna?
Really, I don't know how it goes. I know like certain cities, I'm not sure exactly, but I think you do get federal funding for some of the um yeah, some funding and state funding for taking on like groups of people who've been displaced and who need a new place to live. But you're right. What he's saying is basically like keeping people who live there happy and then not totally saying he won't accept um refugees or people that need homes. I just think again, like why can't you just be open to helping people? I don't know. Overall.
You're kind of in a rock and a hard place. I get it. You're the mayor. Nobody's gonna fucking like what you have to say.
No, they're not. So he's trying to please both people, like you said, like both sides.
That's the gig. But and I get him going to the media or putting a statement in the media or like being open to talking to the media about it to try to push lawmakers and the governor to like, you know, pressure them publicly, right? Like I get that. That's gamesmanship, do what you gotta do. But to like dog whistle when you're the first Puerto Rican mayor, to dog whistle to the right wing reactionary Irish freaks in Holyoke, and they're fucking freaks. It's a Christo fascist cult of people that roll together. Signal to them. I get like, you know, the reality is we all live here and you do have to, I guess you have to work with both sides, but fuck them. You know, there's a way to say like, we need, go out there and put a number down. What do we need? What amount do you need? Don't do this. Also like signal to them that like, yeah, I'm going to be reasonable. But dude, we have a city that can house 60,000 people with only 40 something thousand people in it. We're better off having people using the infrastructure that we have. Like it's so crazy. And it's just, we have room. Landlords doing landlord shit. I don't know, Joanna. I'm just at a loss. I hate this both sides, and I hate fucking dog whistling to these right wing reactionaries that Jourdain represents. Jourdain and Linda Vakin and all the other fucks in Holyoke City Council. And I hope you listen to this. Maybe we'll put this on the fucking YouTube as a sold out thing. Like, come on, guys. This is trash. We have the fucking room for people. Be honest about what resources we need. Let's be clear eyed. Let's welcome everybody and none of this catering to the right wing fucking racist reactionaries. God damn. So yeah, that's my ghoulery and tomfoolery. Thank you, everybody. Listening to an episode without a guest. We like having guests on, but we you know, scheduling was complicated with our potential guests this week, but we have people lined up coming in the future. So thank you. Please come back and listen. As always, go to www.theweedout.com. Joanna, before I do any more housekeeping, do you have anything you want to add?
Take care, everybody.
Thank you, everybody, for listening. Again, please check out Shelby Lee's article in the Shoestring. They did a wonderful job. We appreciate them. Shout out to everybody at the Shoestring. Thank you for doing the work, and thank you for everybody that helps fund them. It's a community-funded newspaper, online newspaper, but they're great. They do very in-depth reporting through public records. Yes, we're nerds here. We're going to shout out public records people. Please find Jeff Raymond's work, find Andrew Premier's work, find Dusty Christensen, who does a lot of work for the Shoestring, but also an independent journalist. Give them love. You can do whatever you can do to support us independent journalists, and look forward to hearing from y'all in the future. As always, check our website for anything we mentioned, and we appreciate y'all listening. Take care.